welcome to Take Two. I'm your host, Chris Edwards, and this is the show that focuses on people of color who have businesses and use social media to forward those businesses and grow. Today, I'm going to bring to you another amazing guest. My next guest, she is a mother, a wife, a scientist, an author, a baker, and a desert curator. Welcome, Dr. Altreicia Foster. What's up, Altreicia? How are you?
I'm good. Hey, Chris. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for saying yes. So, listen, in all this full disclosure, Altrecia and I have actually known each other for over 20 years. We have mutual friends, and then also her and my cousin are really good friends back from home. And when I say back from home, I mean Jamaica. Those that are watching from the Caribbean community know what I mean when I say that.
Yeah.
It's crazy how
Yeah,
time has
absolutely.
passed. Yeah, God.
Yeah, I said absolutely in agreement with you. I'm so proud of where you are today. I'm proud to be here to have this conversation and to see, our journey over 2 decades to being here in this space right now. I look forward to an exciting conversation with you.
Absolutely. So I want to go start a little bit back, even before social media. You immigrated from Jamaica, and you went to school, I believe, in Howard and at Harvard. Is that correct? All right. And
Mm-mm.
sorry, say that again.
Yeah, no. I went to Howard and George Washington.
Oh, George Washington. Excuse me. I
Yeah.
stand corrected. I stand corrected. But your journey is very vast. You started in science, and you're a virologist. Is that correct?
I am a virologist. Yes, I'm a vaccine scientist.
Okay, so talk about your journey when it regards to coming to the U.S. and starting in science.
hmm so my journey is it's a crazy one. When I left Jamaica in 2001, I believe, I just left with a hope and dream and $900. I tell the story in my book how I pushed myself to this space. And I was lucky enough to have been like one of the smart kids to be able to go to one of the top high schools in the country. But after high school, most of those students would migrate or immigrate to the US or even to Europe to do the prestigious universities and colleges. But then I was very impoverished. I was really one of those struggling kids, and I did not see a future beyond school in Jamaica. But then I was lucky enough to have been in a circle of individuals who were advancing, in terms of their educational acumen, to be able to be inspired by them per se. And I just saw more for myself, even though I didn't have money. I saw more for myself. And you have a Jamaican or Jamaican background, and you know how our parents are. They think that you have to have these traditional degrees to be able to be successful. You can be an architect, engineer, lawyer, doctor, you know. And I chose the route of science because okay, I want to be someone prominent. I want to be able to take care of my family, even though I was impoverished. I was able to dream, and that's how I entered into the realm of science.
It's amazing. I agree with you. When you have parents of Jamaican descent or even Caribbean descent, it's really focused. It's about you going to school, getting an education, having a family, and just not sidestepping those traditional roles, not looking or going after what you're passionate about. Um,
hmm
you know, as I mentioned, you're not only a scientist, but you're an author and a baker. And I truly believe that, as you say in your book, baking saved your life and changed your life. Talk about your journey from being a scientist and using baking and the baking science as a vehicle
hmm
to to fulfill what it is that you had inside.
Man, so I've because of my upbringing of being from a an impoverished background, I pushed myself. I kept pushing myself to excel and to exceed, above everyone else, simply because I was not confident enough. I suffered through imposter syndrome how dare you, a poor girl from Jamaica, from Golden River above rocks, St. Catherine, to be successful in your own right? Like, who are you? How dare you to even try to charter that course to becoming me? And I struggled at home. I was victimized by an uncle of mine. And ultimately, that I believe was kind of pushing me because I was trying to bury that trauma from being impacted by a family member. So I used education and the rise to success and the rise to greatness as something to kind of bury everything that happened to me. But at 27, 28, successful PhD. I was a principal. I was doing vaccine science work in the islands. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. I think that pregnancy evoked something because, like my mother couldn't protect me from who victimized me, I was now brought into a space of how am I going to protect this girl?
Mm.
And I started a cookie class. I did a cookie class simply because I was challenging myself to do something different. And then that allowed me to really process everything that happened to me as a kid.
That's amazing. And here's the thing, not everyone can take their pain and make something positive out of it. For you,
Hmm.
I mean, that springboarded you into something totally different. And it's so funny because I remember you when you were in school and studying science and, big PhD doctor, and years later, because there's some time that we hadn't been in touch, and we just kind of really reconnected last year.
Hmm.
But I think even before then, I had saw, and my cousin had told me, he was like, "Oh yeah, Altricia's a big time baker now." I'm just like, "Wait, what happened to her PhD in science?" you know, how do
Yeah.
you how do you square that in your mind, like going to school for all those years, having that PhD in science, and then also going to switching over and going into baking. I mean, of course, yes, baking is a science, so I guess that is the correlation. But talk about that transition and how you made that work for you.
Hmm. I instantly recognized what science did for me in terms of the financial security. But then I recognized, I was able to recognize what the baking aspect did for me emotionally and mentally. So I had to sit back and reconcile that, okay, you are a baker and you're also a scientist. So I do both, you know. I'm still Altrisha, the vaccine scientist. I'm a public health practitioner, but I'm also Altrisha, the baker from Sugar Spoon Desserts, and they work for me because I find myself I play dual roles. At the same time, I'm able to transition quite easily, going back and forth, and I love them both. Why can't I have both of them?
Right.
I choose not to choose one over the other.
That's awesome. And I'm a true believer in that. When people tell you all the time, oh, no, just focus on one thing. No, I think that if you
Mm-mm.
have multiple passions, invest in both of those things. Because here's the thing, if God forbid something happens and you can't do that one thing that you were destined to do, how do you
Yes.
pivot? At
Yeah.
least you have something you can pivot to and you have something to fall back on. So,
Hmm.
kudos to you for following your passion and still continue to do both. Now,
Yeah.
I want to talk about how that one cookie class changed your life and you turned it into a business.
Hmm. I absolutely did. Did this one cookie class, like I mentioned, and then I did a cake class following. I was like 9 months pregnant. I did a cake class. I was bedridden, something. But then I just kept watching YouTube videos and started growing, and I became so good. I remember in my fifth or sixth month, there were people asking me to do style shoots, and I'm like, "What? Like, this is a hobby little thing that I'm doing over here because I'm going back into science after I have this baby." But then I made a cake, and Elle magazine, the online version, reached out to me because they wanted to publish the cake, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, nah, not you. But then I realized there was something from science that I was actually bringing to my baking. One, I'm a fashionista. I love clothes and I love dressing up. And I was bringing those to my cake. Those elements, those modern, tall cakes, the movements in my cake were kind of mimicking my own flow. I love colors. I love wearing colors, and I was bringing those to my cakes. But not only that, I was quite precise. I was precise to a point where it was a little bit too annoying. But that was the science element that was coming into my cakes, so it was making me different. It was setting me apart. And I embraced that. I embraced the difference, and I embraced that people liked what I was doing. For a while I was doing it all free. you know? I know, like you said, like your cousin and I are friends. And she was like one of my biggest, and she still is one of my biggest supporters. I love that girl to death. And she just kept telling me, like, Trish, you have to turn this into a business. And I'm like, nah, I'm still going back into science. But because of, that the take, my perspective on cakes, it really propelled me into a space where ABC, the Bachelorette, started reaching out to me to make a cake, and I was like, "Oh snap! Here you go, girl. Let's build this thing out and do it right."
Yeah, I was going to ask you, that was my next question because I know that I don't know if that was like your big break when ABC and The Bachelor actually reached out to you to do a cake because
Mm-hmm.
that's where you were really seen and your business I think really just took off then. So talk about that experience of them reaching out to you and where your business has gone since that opportunity.
Yeah. So I was in my community just baking. I just moved to Minneapolis maybe like a year, or yeah, a year and a half prior to the Bachelor reaching out to me. So I was building a community. I was still making premium premier cakes. So my brand was known in the city. But when Warner Brothers reached out to me and I start making my way to Elle magazine, People magazine, even the Jamaica Observer at home, that was when I just exploded. The business and even my own personal life and my personal story. Because for a long time I was behind the scenes. I'm super introverted. Um, and I prefer to be behind the scene, to remain hidden. But then Warner Brothers plucked me pretty much from obscurity. Now I have to now stand up, represent the woman that I've worked so hard to become, represent my kid's mother, Oladi's wife. I have to now show up as this person. Like, so for me, I stepped into that space. I felt like a table was immediately prepared when Warner Brothers reached out to me, and I stepped into it because there is a level of responsibility that comes with that once you are in the spotlight or the limelight, and like girls are now seeing you, your children are now seeing you differently. You have to step into it graciously and lead.
Okay. So listen, we've kind of talked about you as a mother, you as a wife, you as a baker. Talk a little bit about what this dessert curator actually means.
Curate desserts. I make desserts. I think I make the best desserts. I
Okay.
curate beautiful and delicious desserts for your events. So I put myself in that space. I tell girls all the time, because I lead a foundation. I tell them all the time that whatever you touch, tell yourself that you're the premier of it all, right? Even if you're a writer, you're a novice in this area, but you have to project the vision. So I'm a visionary in my space. I know I can curate the best events. I can design the best desserts for your events. So call me, you know. So that's what
Okay.
it's all about. Like I can give you an experience. I'm curating your desserts. I'm curating an experience for you.
Absolutely. All right. So now I want to go and just really spend a lot of time talking about you as an author because you've used your book to really not only heal yourself, but to heal others and give people the opportunity to use baking as a tool um, to deal with their traumas. Um,
Mhm.
Talk about what that experience has been for you to write this book, what it did for you personally, and what people have gotten out of it.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but thank you for asking it. Um, the book for me was spurred by Simone Clark. I did an interview on TVJ right when the announcement came that I baked the cake for the Bachelorette. And I shared the story of how I was a fatherless girl. I suffered adult indiscretion and I left Jamaica with only 900 US dollars, nowhere to sleep, no tuition, but I just had a dream for myself. And it was then that she told me she believed I had a story to tell. But I wasn't quite ready to share my story because um poverty to me was a shame. I hadn't yet processed that it wasn't my shame to carry. Um I felt like any my victimization was a shame. I didn't realize then that it wasn't my shame to carry. But then the more I thought about it, and I saw the beauty of what cake did for me. Cake changed me and it literally saved my life. And it plucked me from obscurity. And I'd started a foundation for girls with the premise to teach them to bake through their own traumas because I had done so. Not to say that traditional talk therapy wasn't working because I did that too, but there was an alternative and a support, and there's an arm to support this work. So I needed to authenticate my voice because I was only telling the story from a space where I'm impoverished. I am from a single parent household, but not that I I was hurt as a girl. I was raped as a girl. I like all these things that happened to me as a girl. So I didn't feel like I was authentic enough. And the ladies that I wanted to connect with needed to hear the true me, or meet the true me, and hear the true story. So that really was an impetus behind me writing the book. Man, it was hard telling my own truth, but I felt like if I was going to walk in my purpose of the Cake Therapy Foundation to help heal girls like me, I needed to authenticate my voice and tell the story of who I am.
Listen, I totally understand that when you are able to walk in your truth and just be
Yes,
your authentic self, no one or nothing can stop you.
I
And go ahead.
I absolutely agree with you. And it speaks to the response to the book, because in our culture we're told not to speak. We're told if it's going to put a blemish on the family at all, it's best to be quiet. And I wasn't quiet. I chose not to be quiet. And of course, everybody's going to be upset, but everybody except me. I don't care once I've laid that burden down, right? And I'm walking my truth. I'm free. I'm doing what I want to do now. I have no shame. The shame's yours. It's not mine.
Absolutely. And you're happy. And I mean, when it boils down to it, you know what? You have to live with yourself. And if you can't, embrace who you are fully as a human being, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about you. You know what I mean? You have
Absolutely.
to be happy first before you can be happy for the people around you. And it's not just you. You have a husband and you have children that you have
Yeah.
to take care of and that depend
hmm
on you. And if you're not a happy person, you can't give them love that they need to grow and to be happy people.
Yep. You have to show up for yourself. You have to choose to show up for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. You can't show up for other people if you're not showing up for yourself. Show up for yourself
Mm-mm.
first, and then showing for other people just becomes easier. So,
Easier because you can't pour from an empty cup.
yeah, words of wisdom. Words of wisdom. So listen, you have this book. You're also a public speaker. Talk about some of your speaking engagements and the type of people you talk to, and what it is that you talk about when you do speak.
Yeah. So I think the public speaking thing, I'm actually being drugged into it right now. Yeah, I'm being drugged into it. Um, because like I tell you, I am an introvert, you know, and coming into to spaces, to talking to people, it's still, I'm not like 100% comfortable with that.
It's so funny you
Um,
said I don't believe that because I know you.
I know that's the thing. I Here's the thing. I show people what I think people need to see, but I don't think throughout all of this, no one, I wrote this at the front of my book, that no one really knew the real me. And I was hoping through the book that my friends would forgive me for not allowing them to see the real me for all of these years that they've been so loyal and true to me. So my public speaking foray, I would say, is because I have this story and I now have this platform. I speak to girls. I speak to girls at the universities. I'm speaking to girls, getting out of foster care. I'm speaking to girls impacted by the justice system. Um, I'm I'm speaking to men. I'm speaking to men in the community who've been impacted as well by trauma, because I'm trying to heal households from generational trauma through cake. So I do that. I'm unwittingly, I say, but I'm embracing it because I'm called to do it, and
Yes.
I'm responding to that call.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And when you embrace your true self, everything else just kind of falls into place. I'm actually taking a look right now. You were on the cover of Disruptors. You were named one of the top 20 unstoppable women in enterprise for 2023. That's huge, lady. That is huge.
I know. I know. And it's like little old me though. Little old me.
But why not you?
I know. I know. For a while though, Chris, I struggled to embrace that. I really struggled to embrace that because I I always look at myself, the audacity of you, the audacity of you to believe that you could be better than they thought you could be. And I still have to reconcile with those things. But you know what? I'm really happy that the legacy that I'm leaving for my kids, especially my daughter, it's a really big deal for me. And the legacy that I'm leaving for the little girls in my community of Golden River Above Rocks, that's a big deal to me because I want them to know that they too can become disruptors.
Absolutely. So I'm also taking a look. You've been recognized on quite a big few platforms: U.S. Weekly, People Magazine, your local Fox 9 news station, the Jamaica Observer, and then also PBS. Tell me what it feels like to be able to be recognized across all these different platforms. As you would say, little old you, who you felt as though you didn't deserve this, to be recognized and to be uplifted in such a way. What does that mean to you?
Um, it means everything and it means nothing. Here's why. It means everything because whatever I've worked for, I approach it with a lot of authenticity, right? I'm very authentic with whatever I do. I lead the work with integrity. And with these organizations and media houses being able to recognize the work that I've done, it means a lot to me, right? And then I say it means nothing because it's here one minute, gone the next. And it's all about the next move. It's all about what you do next. I remember when ABC called and my mom was in the kitchen and we were excited because my mom loves The Bachelor. And she was telling me like, I've prayed for this. And she's always prayed for this. She's told me as a girl that I would go to school with the prime minister's kids, and I did. She told me like she dreamt these dreams for me, and I've lived them. But when I was on TVJ, funny enough, Krish, she thought that was the height of it. And then there comes Warner Brothers. And then the thing that's interesting here, she told me then that this is my profile moment. For Jamaicans, or for non-Jamaicans, they know that Profile is a huge show in Jamaica. It highlights the best of the best out of the Caribbean and out of the country. So she saw this Warner Brothers moment as my profile moment until Profile booked me. Right? So I'm saying this, it's like it's all about what you do when you're elevated into these spaces, it's the next move, and it's how you hold yourself, to the highest regard. People see you. Now you have to live up to that
Yeah,
expectation. And how do you navigate that? And that's why I say it means so much, but then yet it means nothing because you can lose it very quickly.
absolutely. And I think that you're navigating it well. You're
Thank
living
you,
up
Chris.
to it. And as a
Thank
fellow
you.
Jamaican, I am proud of you. I love seeing our people do well. You know,
Thank you.
we are proud. We work hard, and we want to achieve and be the best that we can be. And you are a prime example of that. And thank you. And I look up to you for that.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much. That means a lot, bro. Cause
Yeah.
we be friends for a long time, man. Like
Yes.
it's
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah. Thank
listen,
you.
on this show, we like to really highlight people who have businesses, but also how they use social media to tie their businesses and then to make them
Hmm.
grow. One of the things I've always found with social media is that there's been a deficit when it comes to people of color.
Yeah,
A lot of times, our white counterparts can come on these platforms and they don't have to do anything really, and they can become a success and have notoriety, whereas we have to work even harder. And it's true in everything that we do in this world as minorities. Um, but how have you used social media to propel your business and all the other things that you're doing? Between the book, between your public speaking, and then just your life in general.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna respond to it this way. My life in general, it's no social media. I don't present much of my personal life on social media. I really try to keep my kids away from the social media aspect of life. So that's like the quickest and shortest answer. But the public part of my life, it's all social media. I've gained this, I'm not going to use the word notoriety. I've gained a lot of following through social media. My brand was built on Instagram, you know. I get a lot of my clients through Instagram because I don't use the other platforms as much. And I think that's one of my major deficits because I think I could grow a little bit more, but the question is, do I want to grow faster? Because I need to be able to accommodate the pace. But most of who my brand is, my book sales is through um social media. My podcast promo is through social media. My fundraising for my foundation is via social media. So I've used these platforms effectively to grow my brands and to be able to get anything done. I don't do, I think recently I just recently started doing like maybe a Google ad, one or two, but I found that I didn't really need it because most of my I have a lot of return customers and a lot of recommendations. People recommend others to my brand. But like I mentioned, like I use social media a lot to be able to grow my business and my brands to
Okay, so
no
you're
avail.
you're you're doing what I always tell people to do: work smart, but and grow slow, not fast. The other thing
Mm-hmm.
too is, I'm always a big proponent of slow and steady wins the race. This is
Yeah.
not a sprint; this is a marathon. You know,
Yes, it
and
is.
yeah, and you're doing amazing in it. I've been really following you for especially the last year and a half, 2 years, and just
Yeah.
watching what you're doing. And the artistry in your cake work is
Yeah.
just amazing. And I think what I'm going to do is while we're talking, I'll probably show a few of those cakes so people can start to really understand what it is you do. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I remember when we were younger and growing up, going to the bakery and getting a cake was, nothing, not a big deal. But nowadays, it's huge. There is a big business for one, and then two, you have people who are artists, such as yourself, that are highlighting that in these extravagant and just elegant cakes. And people always wonder why. Well, why is it so expensive? Have you seen this? These cakes. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about your process and how you work and how long it can take you to do a cake.
It's long. And I would say it's long for me because I'm very meticulous, Chris. If I'm not comfortable with the cake, I'm not sending it out. So that would mean that I'm not comfortable with you. Someone's order is due. I'm gonna have to do it over. But it's rare. I barely do that, because I'm that good. I'm joking. But I'm super meticulous. So here's what. It takes about 30, 40 minutes to really settle on what this client wants. There's back and forth email process. I try to streamline it on my website, where people could just go to sugarspoondesserts.com and they have a sheet and they send me an email about what they want. But then once that's done, I have to start thinking about, okay, what what does the version of this inspiration that they've shared with me is going to look like? Because I don't necessarily want to copy someone else's work, because I am a scientist at heart, and I'm coming from this world where you don't plagiarize someone else's work and not give them credit. So immediately I'm beginning to think like, okay, I can't copy this cake. How am I going to make it different? So that's a process within itself. And then let's articulate about the design aspect of it. You may in your head have a concept all built out and you have everything in front of you. But for me, it's my safe space, right? Where I'm
Mm.
sitting and I'm falling in love with this piece of art that I've taken on. Now I'm going to make it my healing space, because I have to heal too. My soul has to heal in this process. So if it's going to upset me, I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to definitely lean into the process and the design that heals me first,
So
heals
hold
my
on.
soul first.
Let me just interrupt you right there, real quick, because I find that very fascinating that you say that. So, what I got from your book was that when um, you were writing this book and the whole process of you learning how to do cakes, that was your healing moment. So, basically, what you're telling me is that every cake that you do, there's healing involved for you. And then in that healing, you're able to produce that cake for someone else.
Absolutely what it
That
is. It
that's kind of mind blowing. So you're
Yeah.
constantly on this healing journey. It hasn't stopped for you. It's continuing in every single piece that you do.
Yes, absolutely, Chris. It has to. And that's why I'm telling you and I'm telling others that there's healing in this space. Because for me, uh I could have like a really terrible morning, and then I'm thinking about the cakes that I'm about to deliver in the weekend. And I start working through that. So this is a journey of the week. It starts. It's every day, it's a new thing, it's a new feeling, it's a new emotion that I'm experiencing with my cakes. And if I'm not feeling that, I'm done. So I talk about baking with a purpose. I'm truly baking with a purpose, because I was already Dr. Altreicia Foster prior to finding that I was now Baker Altreicia Foster. You get what I'm saying? So I see it as the gift that was given to me to heal me and to heal others. So I don't take it for granted at all.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Let me ask you this: where do you see this ultimately going? Like, I mean, of course, you want to grow your business, but is there something even more underlining that you want to get out of this experience?
Yeah. Yes. I'm I'm baking with a purpose. I I haven't gotten to where I want to get to financially yet, but I'm no longer looking at it as the tool that could get me where I need to go, from a financial standpoint. I'm not going to get wealthy from it, but I want to be able, my end goal is to ultimately impact people globally, internationally, around the healing power of the culinary arts. And I want to be able to change the trajectory of girls who were impacted greatly by family members or just systemic issues as a whole, right? I want to be able to use this gift, Chris. I believe it in my heart that it was a gift that was given to me to really elevate me to a place where I can now walk a purposeful walk and change the outcomes and the lives of women and girls all over the world.
Hmm. All right, so you say you want to impact girls and women around the world. Let me ask you this. How often do you, as we would say, go back home? And how often do you go back home with purpose and intentionality?
Every time I go home. I go once a month. If you listen to my podcast, I'm dealing with a sick mom at the moment. She has dementia and she's in a nursing home. That nursing home happens to be at home. So I go to visit my mom to connect with her every month. But each time I step on I get off the plane and I step on my island and I smell that good, I feel that breeze and that sun on my
Yes,
body. It's with
yes.
intention. I know now that there are girls at home who are seeing me, and I have to step in that purpose. I reconnected with my university, so I'm doing a lot of mentoring with the university at home. But not only that, I'm putting together trainings and having conversations to be able to teach girls aging out of foster care, how to make entrepreneurship. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm putting a lot of things. So I'm very intentional. So I made connections with the vocational schools on the islands. I've started awards for girls who are underserved who are attending those schools. So it's really intentional. I'm taking small steps into getting the word out that I am here. I'm not a savior, but here's the story that I'm leading with, and here's the work that I'm doing. Help me do it, help me bring some girls along, and just help me grow, and help me grow this foundation.
Wow. That's amazing. What would you say to your younger self?
I would say to my younger self, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna give you two age groups, right?
Okay.
At my young self at the age 8, I was the happiest. I was living in the country in the village with my grandparents and my cousin, and I was really happy. And I would say to myself at 8 that, girl, this is going to be you. Happiness lives in you, and you're going to move from this country. You're going to be successful in your own right, and you're going to do it unapologetically. My 16-year-old self, I'll say to her, like, girl, you're going to be okay. That's it. You're just gonna be okay.
Okay. I
Hmm.
received that.
Yeah.
So as we begin to wrap this up, what would you say this to yourself, well, you have young kids, especially you talk about your daughter. What do you impart to your daughter as not just a mother, a wife, but a business owner and a woman of the world? What do you say to her?
I say to my daughter, and this is really true because I say to her every day, every day. I tell her she's beautiful. I tell her I love her confidence. But then I tell her also that she can be anything that she wants to be and become. And I support that. If she wants to do an art class, I'm gonna send her to do an art class, because you don't have to be in a traditional form of career to be successful. The world is your oyster. I tell her that as well. But I encourage her to just live her life with integrity and just be her best self, because it's going to be okay. It really
Yeah.
is.
That's awesome. Listen, the one thing I love about you is you're honest, you're intentional, you're thoughtful, you're thought provoking, and I want people to walk away from this knowing that it doesn't matter where you come from. Your circumstances don't have to determine your future. You've
Hmm.
talked about being impoverished and now living, I would say, a comfortable life. You're living quote unquote the American dream. You came here with $900 to your name. You went to school, you became educated, not just undergrad, but postgraduate work and a PhD, working in science, and then also now creating your own business and making a way for yourself and for others. And I think that's
Yes.
really, really important. It's one thing to do something for yourself, but when you can, open up your heart and do something for other people to make a way for them, that's truly awe inspiring. I love you. I love what you stand for. I love who you've become. I loved watching your journey, and I'm going to continue to watch this journey as you continue to this life. Altricia, Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your story and allowing people to see who you are. Please, people, as you watch this, make sure to check the comments, the description down below, because we're going to have all of her information. This beautiful lady on your screen is Dr. Altreicia Foster. Again, let me just run down her credentials. She's a mother, she's a wife, she's a scientist, she's an author, she's a baker, and she's a dessert curator who's got a lot of credentials behind that. You know, she's been featured so many different places. Let me just read off a few of them again, if you didn't hear it or if you're just now joining us. She's been featured in US Weekly, People magazine, on her local Fox 9 station, the Jamaica Observer, and then also on PBS. But more importantly, she is just an amazing human being. So Altreicia, thank you so much for your time, for agreeing to do this. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this episode of Take Two. Be sure to watch us next week. We'll have another amazing guest. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of others, and maintain a safe space. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching this show on Indie Soup Media. Now, if you're watching here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification button so that you can get notified when we drop new videos every week. See you guys next time.